This is just a quick tutorial on how to do correlation tables in Excel. So if you remember from class, we looked at this slide about correlation, which measures the relationship between two variables, and they can either move together positively, such as if we invest in advertising, we would hope that our revenue would go up. They could also have a negative return. So if we invested in security, we would expect that crime would go down or theft would go down. And then we could have no relationship where it just would be zero. And so if you look in your reading, you can find out here where it says, this is on page 169, the correlation has a range between negative and 1 and negative or and positive 1. And so if it's negative 1, that would be that negative correlation. The example that we're going to do is a list of stock prices, or actually stock returns, for each month. And so we've got Apple, AT&T, Cisco, and so on. And what we want to know is, are any of these stocks correlated with each other? Meaning, if one of them goes up, does it indicate that another one will go up? That'd be very helpful information for investing. So we're going to use Excel's correlation table feature, which is in the Data tab. And then I'm going to go over here to Data Analysis and click on that. And then I'm going to choose Correlation. Now, correlation is asking for an input range. The data I want to test is the stock return data. I don't want to test, I'm not going to include the months. That's not a number that will help us with this correlation. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the input range by selecting all of it using that Control-Shift-Down arrow trick. And you'll notice that I also selected the labels that were in the top row. So I'm going to click on Labels in first row. And I'm okay with that correlation table being put in a new worksheet, so I'll hit OK to create that table. The results that we get are listed in this, almost looks like a ski hill where it's going down, and we'll explain why that is in just a second. But we can see, like if I click right in this cell right here, IBM and AT&T have a positive correlation of 0.22, which is actually quite weak. It's not even over 50%, so it's not a very strong indicator. Remember that scale from 0 to 1 or 0 to negative 1 being the negative correlation. So these are a lot of numbers that are difficult to interpret. And so one of the things that we do in this class is we'll generally take all these cells and we'll select them. Then I'm going to go back to my Home tab and click on Conditional Formatting. And if we look at the color scales in conditional formatting, you'll see this first one here goes from green to red, where the highest values are green and the lowest values are red. So by clicking that, I can see just by a glance with the color that Verizon and AT&T are the most correlated with each other out of any of these stock symbols. And that would make sense because they're both in the cell phone industry. And so as Verizon was doing better, it would make sense that AT&T is doing better. Our second highest correlation would be this 0.53 right here between Cisco, and this ticker is for Hewlett-Packard Compaq. And Cisco is a maker of networking equipment for the most part. At the time these stocks were, I believe this is from 2013, and Hewlett-Packard also makes networking equipment, so it makes reasonable sense that they would move together. But you can see like Verizon and IBM, they have a very weak correlation. If Verizon stock goes up, it doesn't necessarily mean that IBM's is going to go up. If you're wondering why each of these ones are here, that's because obviously when Apple stock goes up, Apple stock goes up. And so that is how each of those are to be one, is because that's the intersection of themselves. One thing that is kind of inconvenient about this conditional formatting is that the ones take up all the greenest of the conditional format. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-Z to undo that conditional formatting. The one thing you could do is you can select the numbers that are not those ones. And on a PC, you could use Control and highlight the next range, or on a Mac, you'll use the command button, And I'm going to hold down that command button, and I'm going to select only the non-1 values. And now that those are all selected, by doing that multiple selection is what that's called, I'm going to go back up to conditional formatting, go down to color scales, and over to that green to red scale. And now I can see that for lack of a better term, the greenest cell is now that intersection between AT&T and Verizon. So that pretty much sums up how to make a correlation table in Excel. If you have any questions, you're always free to contact me or stop by at office hours. Thanks so much.